On the night of Thursday, September 25th, 2025, the United States carried out the executions of 2 death row inmates, bringing the total number of executions in 2025 to 35. These 2 individuals, both convicted of heinous crimes, met their fate in a somber reflection of justice. What drives a society to execute its citizens, and what does it truly mean when the ultimate penalty is carried out? In this video, we'll dive into the stories of these 2 men and explore the crimes that led them to face death, the circumstances surrounding their trials, and the aftermath of their actions. But first, please like and subscribe our YouTube channel. It'll help us a lot. Let's start with the case of Blaine Milam, who murdered his 13-month-old daughter, Amora Carson, during a so-called exorcism. On December 2nd, 2008, Blaine Milam, 18 years old at the time, was living with his fiancée, Jessica Carson, in a trailer in Russ County, Texas. Carson's 13-month-old daughter, Amora, became the victim of their shared delusion. Milam and Carson believed the child was possessed by a demon, which led them to perform a brutal exorcism on her. For 30 hours, from the early hours of December 2nd, Milam and Carson subjected Amora to horrific abuse, believing they were ridding her of an evil spirit. Milam struck the child repeatedly, leaving her with broken bones and severe bruising. He also bit her, leaving 24 marks all over her body. Despite the unimaginable pain they were causing, they clung to the belief that their actions were necessary to save her. Carson later revealed that Milam had convinced her that Amora's possession was God's punishment for the child's lies. He claimed that Amora was possessed because God was tired of her lying to Milam. This disturbing belief further distorted their reality and justified their violent actions. Milam's intellectual limitations, his IQ was 68, made him especially vulnerable to Carson's delusion. His inability to critically assess the situation led him to believe the violence was justified, although his defense team later tried to shift the blame to Carson, suggesting she had religious delusions and a visual perception disorder. Milam was still complicit in the brutality. His actions, although influenced by his cognitive limitations, were driven by a deeply misguided belief that he was saving the child. After the abuse, on December 2nd, 2008, Milam and Carson called 911, reporting that they had found Amora dead. The law enforcement quickly arrived at the scene. Initially, they claimed they left her alone in the trailer and returned to find her attacked by an unknown intruder. However, their story changed quickly. They then said Amora had eaten insulation, which supposedly caused her injuries. But as investigators dug deeper, their story quickly unraveled. Milam and Carson eventually admitted to subjecting Amora to hours of brutal torture, believing they were performing an exorcism to rid her of a demon. The couple's twisted story evolved, from a supposed break-in to the child's ingestion of insulation, and finally to the chilling truth: they had been the ones to harm her. In 2010, Milam was convicted of capital murder for his role in Amora's death. The prosecution relied heavily on forensic evidence, including the 24 bite marks found on Amora's body. Despite defense arguments claiming Milam was intellectually disabled with an IQ of 68, he was sentenced to death by lethal injection. Milam's lawyers attempted to shift some of the blame to Carson, suggesting that she was the one who had suffered from religious delusions and that her distorted perception led her to harm Amora. However, the court found Milam complicit in the crime, and his intellectual disability argument was not enough to prevent his conviction. His case was further complicated by the discredited bite mark evidence, a key factor in his trial, which would later spark debates about forensic science's role in capital punishment cases. Milam spent years on death row, with multiple appeals seeking to halt his execution. His defense team argued that he should not be executed due to his intellectual disability and the unreliable forensic evidence used in his trial. Yet, the courts rejected these appeals, and Milam's execution proceeded as planned. On May 25, 2025, After years of legal battles and multiple failed appeals, Blaine Milam was executed by lethal injection at the Texas State Penitentiary in Huntsville. He was 35 years old at the time of his death, having spent nearly 15 years on death row. Milam's execution came after multiple attempts by his defense team to delay it. His lawyers argued that he should not be executed due to his intellectual disability and the unreliable bite mark evidence used in his trial. However, the courts rejected these appeals, and Milam's death sentence was carried out. In his final moments, Milam made a statement. He thanked those who had shown him kindness and support during his time on death row, particularly the chaplains who had helped him find religion. His words reflected his religious conversion. If any of you would like to see me again, I implore all of you, no matter who you are, to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and we will meet again. I love you all. Bring me home, Jesus. Milam's last meal consisted of a cheeseburger, oven-fried potatoes, green beans, pinto beans, sliced bread, scrambled eggs, country gravy, a sausage patty, pears, biscuits, tea, and water, an assortment that reflected his last request for comfort before his execution. Blaine Milam's execution highlights the complexities of justice. While it may bring a sense of closure, it also raises difficult questions about fairness, especially considering Milam's intellectual disability. Was it just to execute him, or did the system fail to address his mental limitations? While Blaine Milam's case raises questions about the fairness of the law when executing an inmate with an intellectual disability, the case of the next death row inmate in today's video, Geoffrey Todd West, was executed quickly, and West was not given the opportunity to appeal his sentence when he expressed remorse too late. In March 1997, Geoffrey Todd West, just 21 years old, had once worked at Harold Chevron, the very place he would return to on March 28, 1997, with his girlfriend to commit a robbery. Margaret Parrish Berry, 33, was the store clerk on that fateful night, simply doing her job. Their paths had crossed only in passing, but for West, desperation had reached a breaking point. Faced with financial struggles, he decided to rob the store. But when Berry became a witness, West made the brutal decision to kill her. On the night of March 28, 1997, Geoffrey Todd West walked into Harold Chevron with one thing on his mind: to rob the store. Armed with a .45 caliber handgun, he made his way behind the counter, where Margaret Parrish Berry, the 33-year-old store clerk, was lying on the floor. What started as a robbery quickly turned into something far darker. West took $250 from the store's money jar, but when Berry glanced up, her eyes met his. In that instant, West made a decision that would forever alter the course of his life, and hers. He shot her execution style in the back of the head, ensuring she couldn't identify him. The shot was swift, final. Berry, a mother of two, had no chance. In that moment, West didn't just steal money. He took a life, silenced a witness, and sealed his fate. West and his girlfriend didn't get away for long. Within days, they were arrested, and the details of the crime became clearer. West's girlfriend, in exchange for a lesser sentence, testified against him, revealing how desperate they were for money. But the truth about West's actions was much more chilling. It wasn't just a robbery gone wrong. West's decision to kill Margaret Berry wasn't born out of panic. It was cold, calculated, and deliberate. In the weeks after the crime, West would reflect on that fateful night, torn between his youthful desperation and the horror of what he had done. Even now, as a grown man, West struggles to reconcile the person he was with the man he became after the murder. During his trial, West faced the consequences of his actions. The jury found him guilty of capital murder, and the sentence was clear death. The brutality of the crime left no room for doubt. But what's even more unsettling is that the coldness of West's decision to kill, to eliminate a witness, to take a life for a mere $250, was met with his own regret in later years. But remorse, though powerful, doesn't undo the destruction caused. The court's decision to convict him was not just a matter of justice for Margaret Berry. It was the stark reminder that sometimes the things we do in a moment of desperation haunt us forever. West's remorse may have come too late to save anyone, but it was real, and it was tormenting him. Prior to his execution, West received 8 visitors and 2 phone calls. Other than his final meal of chicken quesadillas and snacks throughout the day, he refused all other food. When the time had come, West was strapped to the gurney with a blue-rimmed gas mask covering his face. The warden asked if he had final words. He replied, "No, sir." Then he gave a thumbs up in the direction of his attorney as the execution began at about 5:56 p.m. West's eyes were open as he appeared to gulp and struggle for breath during the first 2 minutes. At about 6:01, he began to take a long series of breaths with long pauses in between before becoming still at about 6:07. He was pronounced dead at 6:22. In a final statement provided by his attorney, West said, "I have apologized privately to the family of Margaret Parrish Berry and am humbled by the forgiveness her son, Will, has extended." West's execution will mark a grim milestone in Alabama's use of nitrogen gas as a method of carrying out capital punishment, and the reactions from both supporters and opponents of the death penalty are bound to echo in the following days. Will Berry, the son of Margaret Parrish Berry, has expressed his forgiveness toward Geoffrey Todd West, despite the horrific crime that changed his life forever. In interviews and letters, Berry has made it clear that he does not want to see West die. He believes that vengeance is not for the state to decide, but for a higher power. "I don't want this man to die. It won't bring my mother back. I just want peace and healing." His request to meet with West before the execution was denied by prison officials, citing security concerns. Though West's execution has been carried out, the reflection on justice and punishment remains a complex question for the victim's family. For Will Berry and his loved ones, the question still lingers. Does justice truly mean ending a life, or is there a greater power in forgiveness? As we reflect on the executions of Blaine Milam and Geoffrey Todd West, we are reminded of the complexities of justice and the lasting impact of their actions. Milam's case, complicated by his intellectual limitations, and West's cold-blooded decision to kill for a mere $250, both raised difficult questions about punishment, remorse, and forgiveness. For some, justice may have been served, but for others, the pain and the questions will linger forever. What do you think? Does justice truly mean ending a life, or is there something more to be found in forgiveness and healing? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more in-depth stories that challenge our understanding of justice.